Ladies and ladies, welcome back to the channel. What's going on? Steven can't see today. He's just been chilling out there. Enjoy that. Honestly, you just can't really escape drama, but when is drama for drama's sake? Well, you guys sent me this video and told me to watch it, react to it. Genshin Could Never, Wuwa versus Honkai Star Rail versus Genshin Impact versus A Theory Restart versus Epic 7. And I get it, you guys are fans of different games and I kind of jump around through all of them. In fact, I'm not really even playing a fair amount of these right now, and I've been thinking about getting back into it. So I was Googling different stuff on, you know, the games and what's happening so I can get back in there, and most of the stuff that I find in the comment section, you guys are just ridiculous. So let's just go ahead and see what this dude. I broke my headset still, dude. I'm gonna have to get another. Dude, stop it! All right, just start up.
With Notcry bringing Genshin back and Wuwa making waves, it's time to talk about tribalism. The gacha space is forever filled with rage and divisive takes, with people picking sides and refusing to engage with one another. If my experience is anything to go by, it's...
That's just kind of like the world, but yeah, the world's invading the gacha space out there. I mean, we could make a political commentary about how people just don't like talking to each other anymore, but hey, you
very
know.
Easy to get caught in the crossfire, and many people will take a simple misunderstanding and extrapolate from there until they think they know everything about your perspective. A lot of this is the fault of content creators, or if not fault, at least responsibility. But
we'll see where you go with that, because most of the stuff I see is just comment section stuff. But you know what? Maybe...
Unfortunately, the incentives created by the platforms we use and basic human nature makes this whole mess almost inevitable. Fortunately, while the people who revel in all of that are loud, they are a minority. And while it's a little annoying to have to deal with, I do find it fascinating. But what is tribalism anyway? People emotionally invest in the things they care about, be it sports teams, political perspectives, or things like gacha games. Once someone aligns themselves with a specific game or character or creator, they immerse themselves in a niche where all of those around them feel the same about those things. They feel a sense...
Well, so that's just a generalization. That's like if you can't take different perspectives, right? Like you can get lost, like people can, but not everyone. It's not like, oh, dude, if you play a gacha game, you're gonna get fucked up this way. It's gonna happen to you. Or if you're involved in voting any political party, you'll never agree with anyone on the other side about anything ever. I disagree with that. It's too general. Is there a spot of people? Could it even be the majority of a player base or a population that delves into exactly what she said, and they're blinded by whatever it is they're delving into? Sure. But to say it's everybody...
of community, which makes them feel less alone, and their perspective gets reinforced. But then, when they encounter someone who thinks differently, it no longer feels like a simple disagreement. Instead, it's seen as an attack on their identity itself, and so, of course, they respond with vitriol. People start defending multi-billion-dollar corporations like they're a childhood friend. One interesting aspect is how often they have a gigantic blind spot. When they see the same behavior in others who like a different game, they can see how ridiculous it is, but instead of re-evaluating their own perspective, they double down, and whenever the two...
Okay, well, we went from generalization, we're pulling it back now. I like this.
Communities are placed in opposition, anger and controversy erupts. Why is this content everywhere? Why do creators embrace it? What are the consequences?
Well, Darlene, so we have rage bait, which is the most popular one now. It used to be hate clicks, but now it's just rage bait, slightly different. You used to have like the typical just clickbaity stuff, which is like, get the strongest guy, it's the strongest guy in the whole world, must pull. You still see that stuff. Everyone's been around, so unless you're like a 12-year-old, that doesn't really do anything for anyone out there. You have stuff like the Ride and Shotgun channel, I think that's what it is, like, which is my most hated channel in the gacha space, which is just like actual, like, the Neo form of clickbait. Those thumbnails are just absolutely out of this fucking world, showing like Escoffier and Honkai Star Rail for free, getting pulls and shit, and being like, oh, can we get this character? And this got like 500,000 views for no reason, even though it's just like a bullshit video that has nothing to do with anything. You know, so it's just kind of how it works, I guess. Like the people, it's funny, right? The videos that are the most grounded, we'll use that term. It's just like, hey, you put up a tier list, for example. You're just like, tier list 2.5, Honkai Star Rail. And it's just the list on the thumbnail, Who's gonna click on that? Fucking nobody. It's not interesting. So it's the cause or the link between something being interesting but not over the top, right? If you're questioning a title or something on the thumbnail in a way that like intrigues you, like that's a plus. You know, emotional reaction, engagement. That's where we all got the spooky, scary skeletons, you know, sort of story time gameplay thumbnails. We've seen that, right? That's just like a psychological link behind that. So it's hard to find a balance between being intriguing and interesting. And actually, you know, the other part of it too is like some things do seem like they're rage bait. Maybe that person's just naturally generally upset. Maybe that actually is their opinion. So there's a difference between someone like putting something up, like I did something a while ago, had nothing to do with specifically about the creator, but so I just happened to see something for Ethereum Restart where it was just like, my guy was like, yeah, the game's fine, but also at the same time while he's talking in his video, like he's like, I also can't play the game and I can't upgrade any characters, but the game's fine. And it's like, you can't fucking do that. You can't, oh, the game's great, man. But also, like, I played PvP more, but I have 2 characters leveled, so I don't know. You know, let's get back to this.
And why do I have to deal with the fallout? A key part in this is the role of content creators.
I thought she was going to list creators.
The influence of the algorithm and other similar incentives. Platforms like YouTube reward divisiveness. Controversial titles and thumbnails get more clicks. Toxic rhetoric gets more comments. Hot takes get widely shared and drive engagement. An easy way to stand out amongst a sea of voices clamoring for attention is to make a scene. The algorithm sees the whirlwind of activity this creates as a positive and rewards it with ever more exposure. In contrast, a thoughtful, balanced...
Which is kind of funny because you almost kind of see like the imitation of that in like AI as well, like generative AI. You know, like how many different headlines have we seen of like, yeah, dude, they unleashed the AI on the internet and it became a Nazi or something, you know, like
analysis with a less bombastic title will often fade into obscurity, even if it's far more well-researched and well-presented than your average slot 2 content. This leaves creators who see this as more than just a hobby with a tough decision to make. Take the road which they know has a higher chance of leading to success, even if it's not the kind of content they really care for, or gamble their entire career on the hope they'll find a way to build an audience without resorting to those tactics. And intentionally or not, creators often lean into it at least a little to drive engagement. When something gets a lot more views, there's a natural pressure to keep producing similar content. Exaggerated emotions and hyperbolic statements keep a certain type of audience coming back, so you'll see creators screaming at the screen in excitement when reacting to a trailer, or crashing out in rage when a game does something they're not happy with. I'd be surprised if they actually react like that when not on camera, and if they do, I hope they get some help. When everything becomes a spectacle, full of posturing and point scoring, the actual games get pushed aside and it's...
We're about to enter dead internet theory here. Everything's fake, everything's trash, dead internet theory, dude.
Easy for everyone to lose perspective. And once you start yelling and hyperventilating about one thing, even just for the effect, if you don't do that the next time, then people will feel you're no longer quite as enthusiastic, and since that's what they're there for, they might just drift away. Many creators get stuck in a loop where they have to resort to hyperbole whenever talking about things they love or hate. And unfortunately, every creator...
Well, that's the other thing too, is like the have to resort to hyperbole. In my opinion, context matters, right? So like say someone streams for like 6, 7, 8 hours. A lot of the content you might see clipped from that stream and put on YouTube, Twitch, you know, VODs, TikTok, might be the most hyperbolic part of their content. But it doesn't mean like the entire 7, 8 hour stream was that, right? And this isn't just for gacha creators. That's just for creators in general. So yes, no, maybe so. But yeah, the short form stuff a lot of the time is going to be, you know, because another word for hyperbole is just like the most entertaining, the most energetic, the most outstanding part of that content is out there. And it's not going to be Tim the Tatman eating a sandwich for 25 minutes, although sometimes it is.
Who leans into this is setting up a feedback loop of reinforcing bias in their audience. Those kinds of reactions appeal the most to people who themselves are particularly passionate about that subject, whether that's love for one thing or hatred for another. So the more it happens, the more it builds and builds. And then once you have an audience who all feel a particular way about something, any deviation from that expected line might feel like a betrayal to them. The more passionate the fan base, the more intense the tribal expectations become. That That's a recipe for audience capture, erasure of nuance, and even creator burnout if they were playing it up even just a little. And I think the consequences of that point bear much greater emphasis. There are many different reasons people create content: to entertain, to connect with others, to help people play smarter, to share passion for the things they enjoy, to think critically and spark interesting conversations, or, of course, just to chase success. Tribalism inflames some of these motivations while suppressing.
You skipped one big one, all right? Now, major content platforms, major channels, yes. But if you want to count content and platforms as people commenting on Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok, all this other stuff, bro, do not underestimate the power of just loving to shitpost. Do not underestimate just shitposting. I love sometimes to just randomly shitpost on Reddit. Like, I love pointing out, my favorite kind of shitposts is just pointing out hypocrisy, because I fucking hate it. It is my most favorite thing to go on like the MTG subreddit. And last one was like, this one dude was like, oh man, my LGS was so inclusive. And I saw the word inclusive. I was like, oh shit, here we go. Inclusive to me, but like this universe is beyond stuff. Like I don't think I want that in my game. And my comment was like, your LGS was so inclusive to you, but you're not inclusive to the game. Just like quality shit.
Others. Many find it entertaining, and
Just
it can create
quote.
a sense of belonging and bring the creator that success. But building an audience around it reinforces those perverse incentives even further and leaves you with less scope to engage in more nuanced discussions. And as many creators discover, even if you go ahead and make that content anyway, some people in your comments will tell you in no uncertain terms that they don't appreciate you stepping out of the space you created for yourself.
Oh yeah.
Instead, many find themselves in a downward spiral with no way to get out.
Well, that's the shitty part is like, yeah, dude, there's always going to be one person who doesn't like what you're doing. Always, at least one, bro. No one's fucking perfect. I'm not fucking perfect. Even if you made like a perfect video, maybe you, in this 17-minute video we're watching, if like there's a frame that skips, or like there's a misspelling somewhere, or you fumble a fucking word, be sure someone's going to let you know, right? So if you like make like a semi-positive thing, or like you have like an overly negative video and like halfway in that 20-minute video you're like, I kind of like this though, someone's gonna get you for it, right? And then that's just kind of something you have to learn as like a person throughout life, not even as a content creator. Bro, not everyone's gonna agree with everything that you like. You don't need to warp your mentality around that one person.
And unfortunately, whenever all of this is normalized, it spreads out into the rest of the space as well, and other creators who did not make those same choices have to deal with the consequences too. When people are used to creators who act this way, it's natural for them to assume that everyone else does as well. Even if you present your thoughts in a more calm and measured way, they will suspect you're being disingenuous and invent ulterior motives behind your words. I'm here because there are things I feel compelled to talk about. If that brings in an audience, then that's amazing, and I'll always.
I want to speak on this too, because like it goes back to one of my original points, where it's like, dude, you might not be doing rage bait for rage bait sakes, right? Maybe something comes out that really you honestly think is bad. You do not like it. You think it's a bad design for the game, or a direction for the game, or whatever, right? Like Hearthstone just had like this $150 pet skin or something, right? That has like actual gambling mechanics. That's like a 0.005% drop rate or whatever, all the way up until you get all $158 spent. And they don't tell you that unless you go into the website and scroll down and fucking find all the asterisks and do some really underhanded bullshit. If you make a video just roasting the shit out of that company for it, you're not doing it for rage bait's sake. You're doing it to bring attention to something that pissed you off, and you're naturally pissed off about it. And like she's saying, there's a small balance between that, and then also your audience members who have to now decide for themselves if you're doing it to just be a rage baiter, or if you're doing it because that's just honestly how you feel. And that can be, I mean, there's too much fucking information on the internet nowadays. There's too many different interactions with people that you can have compared to the ones that you do have. And like, if you're just like a pizza pie, dude, you're picking some of the stuff off the pizza, and you might just be used to just getting all of the people who rage bait for rage bait's sake. And so you think everyone's a rage baiter now, even though that person that you happen to get the fifth pepperoni off of isn't a rage baiter, and you're just like, I'm done, I'm letting them have it. That's the first comment you make, and you just roast that guy, and he's just like, I'm not I'm not doing it on purpose, though.
Appreciate anyone who takes the time to hear my thoughts, but I still talk about the same things even if it didn't. But unfortunately, thanks to the state of things in general, there's no way to convince some people of that fact. A while back, I made a video about my experience returning to Wuthering Waves. Yes, this one again. I enjoyed the game at first, but ended up a little underwhelmed by the time we reached the end of version 1, largely because the exploration didn't feel like exploring to me. I stopped playing for a while, and I didn't make a video like why I stopped playing WoWA, because at the end of the day, it was a very good game with a clear target audience, even if it wasn't for me. Then, when version 2 dropped, I tried it again and found that the changes to the exploration made it feel fantastic for my...
Alright, this is what happened, alright? I don't even know this creator, so... I do this shit all the time too. I'll just like stop making content on something if I'm done with it. Because I don't want to just be like, because this is what we were talking about the whole time. If she would have made a video being like, this is why I quit WoWA, I don't like this, blah, 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 da, 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 da. That's the hyperbole she's talking about. She didn't really feel all that way. She was just to the point where it's like, I'm going to put it down now. I just don't really want to play it anymore. Right? But when she comes back, she's going to be like, oh man, this is really good. This is a lot better than I thought it was before, and I'm having a lot of fun, and I bet you she gets blown out in the comment section. You woo a shill, Genshin forever. I bet you that's where we're going.
Preferences. A perfect opportunity to make the kind of video I enjoy. One which explores the pros and cons of different approaches to game design and praises the devs for making such huge improvements for people like me without making it any less fun for the people who had enjoyed the game before. That's an incredibly hard balance to strike, and it deserves far more recognition. I went out of my way to make it clear that even in version 1, for many people who wanted something different from the game, the choices we were made were objectively great. Overall, Kura did a good job, and they just took it to another level in Rinasita. I made 2 mistakes in that video. The first was assuming people would understand. The script I wrote was over twice as long.
Well, hey girl, dude, if you assume that everyone's going to understand you, that is a mistake.
At first, with much more detailed explanation of where my perspective came from. But since it all seemed obvious to me...
Like, you could literally do like a 5-minute segment, spelled out verbatim, shit on the screen, underline it, boldface font. This is what I mean, word for, and someone will fuck it up.
I cut it down to the minimum. The second was living in my own little bubble where people enjoy hearing perspectives which are different from their own. Instead, a certain group of people heard even the mildest critique and interpreted it as a hate-filled rant from someone with a dark and biased agenda. To this day, many of them just assume that's where I'm coming from. I should have done a better job of getting my point across, and I'm thankful to the many people who had frank discussions on that video, which gave me the chance to explain myself more clearly. It's just a shame that some people are so tribalistic that they can't even bring themselves to hear a different point of view. The main change this has led to in my videos is that I'm more comfortable letting them be whatever length gives me the room to get my point across, even if it's far longer than the 10 to 15 minutes I had aimed for previously. I still try to condense them down to be respectful of people's time, but on balance, it's better to be a little more relaxed. It's still sad that people are so insecure in their own thoughts that when someone disagrees with them, they feel the need to attack, but at least I made some fun merch out of my favorite of the comments.
And I'm gonna give you a hot tip here real quick. Woman. We're gonna go back real quick. The biggest mistake right here. All right, so here's a hot tip. If this was your thumbnail, Woowa's second chance. That thumbnail alone invites people to come challenge you on both sides. Right? I'm not saying it's your fault or whatever, but like the algorithm we talked about, or you talked about it too. The algorithm loves pulling videos to what it thinks is the proper audience. And if the proper audience it thinks is someone who comments on shit that looks like that all of the time, right? To do the tribalism dogpile on it from both sides, the attackers and the defenders, that's who that video is gonna get pulled to, and it's gonna have a thumbnail that has those words on it, and those people are used to seeing that kind of stuff, and you're gonna get that shit in your video, and it's going to drive it and engage it, and then it's gonna just be the tribalism audience video, right? And that invites challenge, right? It's like in the Avengers, dude. Us existing invites a challenge, bro. Whatever, dude. MCU, RIP.
As that example emphasizes, people get used to all of this pretty quickly, begin to think in terms of us versus them, and start to aggressively apply that to creators too. When people see the world through this lens of tribalism, they're forever trying to fit people into those neat and tidy categories. Any critique of something they like, especially if they didn't experience the downsides for themselves, will instantly see you written off as a hater, a grifter, or even an outright racist if you have—
We talk about this all the time. You're either a shill, grifter, or a hater. There is no in between.
To feel disappointed with something even vaguely associated with non-Western cultures. Any praise for something they dislike, and you're at best misguided, but more likely a disingenuous shill who is only in it for the views. And of course, if you express concern over things like power creep, the direction of the endgame, the predatory practices, and so on, then you just suck at the game and you're salty that you can't get all the rewards. From just a single video, people extrapolate an entire—
Hey man, remember dude, there's no power creep in Honkai Star Rail, you're just bad at managing your resources, dude. Remember that shit? Oh my god.
An idea of who you are as a person, and nothing will convince them that they might have been mistaken. And the moment they have that in mind, either from some past encounter or just because their echo chamber said so, they'll remain forever convinced that they are right.
See, I can start a fight right now. I can be like, is that Dan Hong?
Instead of engaging with a discussion
and clip that shit. Is that Dan Hong?
Like most people would, and saying things like, I disagree with your take, because they come in with heated arguments against the thing they think you said, even if they haven't watched the video at all, and often do not even have the slightest clue what you actually talked about. One of the most important skills in life is the ability to listen and to learn. Nobody knows everything. Nobody.
I'll agree with you, but the most important skill in life is to learn that there's more than one fucking perspective. Not saying that you have to change your perspective, but like you can use the ability to take the other person's perspective sometimes to even drive your perspective in an even more correct path. Be like, oh, I didn't think about it that way before. Let me test my perspective against that. Yeah. Okay, let me test that again. I see that, but it's still, I can't agree with yours. And this is why now I have more fuel, more data, more whatever I go to do to test my perspective against yours. And we can talk about it. That's not what we do in 2025. We'd rather just shitpost each other, which is why I do that on Reddit.
Is right 100% of the time, and there is no such thing as objective fact when you're talking about opinions on a video game. Anyone who claims to that is being disingenuous or is locked into their own personal echo chamber. For anyone who does this, just know you're missing out. Those of us who can handle differences of opinion have much richer and more nuanced experience with the games we play because we get to hear how other people felt about it too. And it does make you wonder what the end game of these people is. Do they want the new people to the game to feel afraid of sharing their perspective since they know they might just get attacked for disagreeing? Do they want videos filled with more caveats than content? Do they want any strong opinions to just be left unsaid? Do they want creators to lie to them and hide them?
No, dude, what they want is the director to come visit them at their door and just right there, dude. Sometimes the $1 billion company, dude, I don't know, man.
Or do they really want a world where the moment someone isn't completely ecstatic with a game, they have to stop talking about it at all? Because I have news for them. No game is perfect. If that's the bar we have to pass, then nobody would ever talk about anything. Personally, I look at content creators who analyze films, TV, books, and so on, and wish more of the gaming sphere would follow that blueprint. Over there, people analyze what makes films tick, what makes the best successful, what flaws made others fail to reach their full potential. It's fascinating, and every time I'm left with a deeper appreciation for the art, even if I disagreed with a creator's perspective. Those are the videos I try to create, and one of my favorite things is seeing comments which start with, "Thanks for sharing your perspective, even though I completely disagree." Thankfully, it seems like only a minority, even in the gaming sphere, are die-hard tribes people. So many people are open, engaged, and have such interesting things to say, which bring new understanding to the conversation. The tribes people often feel louder, but in—
Okay, all right. At least it's, the big minority. And I think, thinking back now, someone probably left a comment, maybe went back, don't erase it, just to edit. She might have said minority before, because I was saying, like, not everyone thinks that. You're kind of being overly generalized.
My comments at least, the ones who want to explore ideas together are much more prevalent. And one aspect of this tribalism, which I'm actually in two minds about, is the way people
Yo, it's that guy from Persona!
reject creators who wish to return to games they used to love. The reason I'm in two minds about this is that there are, undeniably, creators who deliberately stoke the flames in the hopes of getting views, and these creators can genuinely make a community fall apart. When they move on to a different game, it can
Oh my god, it's the lunar whale from Genshin!
feel like a relief, because when the
Am I doing it
toxicity
right?
is gone,
Okay.
those who stick around have far more space to have nuanced discussions. But at the same time, many others get lumped in with this as well. Even creators who have always been constructive get this treatment, even if they
damn.
barely shared why they moved on to something else in the first place.
Why is
If
Joker
they were to
here?
return, it would be a net positive to the space, yet people treat them just the same. And there are those in the middle too, people who criticize out of genuine love for the game, and maybe lean into the hyperbole because that's what drives the algorithm. It's kinda sad, but it feels like that might be the price you agree to pay when you make those kinds of choices. I'm all
I'm not saying anything outside of I'm going to check for something at the end of this video. Timestamp 11:52. If you know what I'm going to check for afterwards.
for giving people second
You're smart.
chances, but I understand those who feel that bridges have been burned. I guess it just depends how far they took it and how honest they were along the way. The people in my comments who fall the most into tribalism regularly devolve into pure comedy, to the point where I could half believe that they were legitimately joking. For example, ever since that video about Renacita, which I mentioned earlier, there have been a handful of people who like to comment on every weird video I make and to assume I'm making some unfounded criticism, even when it's the polar opposite of what my video actually says. The comments which made me want to finally make this video were from a week or two ago when I made a video speculating about Frolova.
Yo, I remember using that font like 38 years ago.
She's a prominent antagonist who had been in the story from the beginning, who was about to become playable. For a long time, I had wanted to talk about the disappointing pattern across gachas in general, where antagonists have their misdeeds wiped away, and this was the perfect opportunity. The video explores where people's concerns came from, why antagonists and villains are so important to stories, why I disagree with the idea that evil doesn't sell, and then covers our past encounters with Frolova and the 3 paths they could have taken with her. Keep her as a pure villain, add context but keep her towards the darker end of moral grey, or turn her into an uwu doppelganger. Obviously, I wanted the first or second, and I had faith that Kuro would deliver. As I said in the video, I felt the middle option was most likely. And as I'll cover in more detail in my next video, they did a fantastic job with her story, and she's a shining example of what I want from an antagonist in any game. My original video was correct on every point. And yet, the moment they played Frolova's story, these commenters piled into my video and said my take had aged like milk. Apparently, I wonder how they'll handle this and hope they'll go with option B is a bad take, especially when they do indeed go with option B. It's wild to me that people will so confidently leave a public comment on something they so clearly know nothing about. While I enjoy the entertainment that comes from having these bizarre...
Hold up, wait, I gotta read this comment. Did you have no content to create from Genshin? Did Daddy Hoyo not give you an inspiration? Also, your video age like milk within 6 days to play story for
thing they so clearly know nothing about.
Whatever.
While I enjoy the entertainment that comes from having these bizarre takes in my comments, I can't help but feel sad for these people who probably miss out on so many interesting discussions because of their myopia. And in the interests of balance, it's important to note that while my 2 examples so far have focused on Wuthering Waves, it's just as prevalent in other communities as well. My takes on Nutlan, for example. Again, I always take pains to emphasize that my perspective is just that, one person's view on the experience and far from objective truth. Many people had a different experience, and I've had many enlightening discussions with them which helped me appreciate the story in ways which the original experience sadly didn't capture for me. That's the whole point of my videos, to acknowledge that everyone feels differently about each part of the game, to spark discussion, and through exploring what made me feel the way I did, to get to learn why other people had a different take.
Whoa, what's the Notlan racist? Hold on, dude, we're
But
about to
of
get somewhere
course,
hot.
many people hate it when you give even the mildest of critiques, and in their mind it becomes, I hate this is stupid, anyone who likes it is stupid, and it should not exist. Guess that might just be how they approach things that they don't like. I just posted a video where I tried to explore why I personally had such a different reaction to the upcoming Notcry character designs compared to the ones from Nutlan. I leaned on my background in design and focused on the part that matters at this point given how little we know about Notcry. The visuals, the aesthetics, the vibes. All highly subjective, which I made clear from start to finish, and many people said they had the same experience. Other commenters pointed to the lore as the justification for the way Hoyo handled Nutlan, but frankly, lore explains why things might be be the way they are, but that doesn't change the experience of how people felt towards the designs at first. One comes before the other, and the more disjointed the first impressions are, the more the lore and story would have to fix in order for things to feel coherent by the end. For many of us, it simply did not bridge that gap, and even that's beside the point. The video was not an attempt to gather evidence and present an argument. It was not about right or wrong at all. It was an observation that lots of people feel a similar way about these things, and an exploration of where those feelings come from. But while those commenters got their hackles raised and ended up missing the point I was trying to make, their perspective on the game itself is perfectly valid, and at least they engaged in the discussion. Meanwhile, the ones who really missed the boat were those who interpret.
Not every perspective is valid, okay? Right? In my opinion, not every perspective is valid. Because if your perspective is literally just it exists because of the rage bait, hate click, nonsensical, like that's not even your perspective. We're getting a little meta here. But if someone leaves a comment that's just blah, 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 you did blah, 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 your shit sucks, blah, 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 woo, woo, show, whatever. That's not really a perspective. Like, if idiocracy is your perspective, then you don't really have one, right? Or if it's just like if hyperbole is your perspective, then like, is that really a perspective? Not in my opinion, right? Not in my opinion.
Criticism of anything related to Natlan as outright racism.
Whoa! Notcry feels like Genshin because you're racist. Not like, oh, dude, these are the people that are like, Jinyan should be more black. Oh, yeah, dude. Wait a moment. Oh, yeah, dude. Crazy, dude. How dare you have tastes? How dare you have tastes, you racist? What? You didn't like the dinosaurs? You racist? You didn't like climbing rocks? You racist? Okay. I think my least favorite one's like Fontaine. Also, don't like anything that's white in Genshin. You can't. If you like white anything, you're an ethno-fascist.
Over 1,000 comments. I saw one person who was an actual bigot, and they're not welcome here. Accusing people of racism because they felt the video
that's what I'm saying, right?
Incohesive is utterly unhinged. Aesthetics were ignorance. I saw one.
This. All right. So like, this is what I was talking about. If your perspective is hyperbole, like a 50-50 shot at least, then you don't really have a perspective. Not only just has too many brown cultures, and I hate brown people. I also hate it when they're not conservative with their designs. This could just be rage bait. It could be a real perspective. It could also just be rage bait, right? So if that's just rage bait, then it's not a perspective at all. So, you know, some people think that's a quality shitpost. Because like, I also hate it when they're not conservative with their designs. Like, I hate brown people. I hate brown cultures. Also, like, make sure you have no skin showing. I don't know. Like, whatever.
People of racism because they felt a video game's aesthetics were incohesive is utterly unhinged. People on both sides of that whole Natlan debate fall prey to this same tribalism. I've seen some people who agreed with my perspective but spent their time bashing those who like Natlan's designs. That's just as disappointing as the behavior of those who bash people for disliking them. If you find yourself...
Well, it depends on why they're bashing them. If they're bashing them because they think they're being retarded for having a retarded opinion, then that's valid. You know, if your opinion is like everyone's an ethno-fascist because they dislike Natlan, then you're gonna get probably fucking bashed on for being a retard. Am I wrong? Like, bash away. Like, I don't know. Like, whatever. Who cares?
On the verge of giving into that temptation, it's worth taking a step back and maybe think about it for an hour or two before you go ahead and reply. Tribalism kills nuanced discussion, especially when it comes to critiques of games which people care about so much. There's always a reason behind your like or dislike of something, and figuring them out can be fascinating. Far more interesting than just saying, this is peak, or this is ass, and leaving it at that. For those who agree, gaining greater insight can be validating, and it can actually reduce resentment and bring back appreciation for the other parts of the game they liked, or even provide enough emotional distance that they can start seeing the positives of the parts which didn't work for them. For those who don't agree, it can help them understand the other perspective on that point, and maybe spark discussion which lets them share their love for it in a way which might help others see the positives at last. While the echo chambers are loud, they really are a tiny minority of the community at large. In case anyone skipped to the end, here's your too long didn't watch, woman. Until next time.
All right, we're gonna look for this comment. I was gonna wait for your voice crackle pop. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, I don't disagree with the vast majority. I agree with most of it there, but I also think that there's some sort of like weird symbiotic, parasitic, which they kind of touched on a little bit in the video, relationship between rage bait, natural thoughts, you know, the communities that are created around it, the people who are just kind of randomly brought into those communities based on how the algorithm thinks that people will interact with each other. That's a big thing right now, is the algorithm wants comments. The algorithm wants interaction. And if two different people are watching that kind of content and then it crosses them into each other with woo a second chance, the video, they're gonna find each other there, and holy are you gonna have a comment section there. So it's kind of, the internet's kind of just been designed for this to happen. And big brain, the world as a whole has kind of been designed for this to happen in all things, whether it's politics, culture, everything. Open up your head. Kind of sucks, right? You got to free yourself from the Matrix, okay? You got to free yourself from the Matrix out there. The Matrix being the stupid algorithm that wants everyone to hate each other. With that being said out there, God bless God. I'll see you. All right, catch up in the next one.